Hello and welcome. It's Pastor Dave Schreffler. It's time for another Gander at the Gospel, a time to take a look at where God might be calling us through the readings for this coming Sunday, June 28th, 2020. It's good to often stretch our necks to see how God might be calling us through God's Word that comes each and every Sunday. I am going to be reading two readings today. The first one comes to us from Paul's letter to the church in Rome, chapter 6, verses 20 to 22. And then I'm going to be reading from Matthew 10, verses 38 to 42. 38 and 39 come from last week's reading. 40 to 42 comes from this week's reading. So, first of all, Paul's letter to the church in Rome, chapter 6, verses 20 to 22. When you were slaves of sin, you were free in regard to righteousness. So what advantage did you then get from the things of which you now are ashamed? The end of those things is death. But now you have been freed from sin and enslaved to God. The advantage you get is sanctification. The end is eternal life. And then the Gospel of St. Matthew, we're going to start with verses 38 and 39. This is from chapter 10, and then we'll go to verses 40 and 42. Whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me, Jesus says. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward. That is the gospel of the Lord. So my theme for this Gander at the Gospel is welcoming. The gospel of Jesus Christ, you realize, is a welcoming gospel. I mean, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That comes from Matthew 11, 28 to 30. So Jesus teaches about the welcoming nature of the gospel. Now, I will say I have been feeling very much a burden upon my soul the last 6 months. And there just seems to be a lot that not only me, but a lot of us carry around lately that we need to unburden ourselves from. So I think I will here today in my Gander at the Gospel. And I'm going to start with a question. My question is this: are we Christians really welcoming as we believe? Are we Christians really as welcoming as we believe? And does refusing to wear a mask mean that I am welcoming or unwelcoming to those I encounter? Now, I can hear some of you sighing already. Do you have to bring up the mask issue? People might even be saying, Governor Wolf has said that we are in the green phase, right? And green means go. So therefore I can go and do whatever I want to because I am a free person. Look, I agree. Green means that we are in a different phase, still not in a state of normalcy, but we have progressed, right? But it doesn't mean that we have the freedom to sacrifice everyone else's health because of our own freedom. There's no more selfish act I can think of right now than to say I don't have to wear a mask because I live in a free country. If you listen to that reading from Paul's letter to the church in Rome, Paul was trying to talk about what it meant to live the Christ-like life. And he says living in God's reality, because we live in God's reality, then we are never not under some obligation. Or, better put, there is not either slavery or freedom. There are two kinds of slavery: slavery to sin and slavery to righteousness. Now, I know using this word slavery is not very very popular right now. This is not a phrase that we should really focus on. But if I want to get to the heart of what Jesus is saying and what Paul is writing about, then the point needs to be made. And eventually I'll get to the point that I want to make. It's unfortunate imagery, but you'll see where I'm going. As a Christian, wearing a mask in public continues to be a demonstration to others that as Christians, we take seriously the call of Jesus Christ to put others first, to be obliged to Christ's teachings, to be slaves to righteousness. Now, many people misunderstand the reason that we are asked to wear masks. Wearing a mask is not protecting myself from others. It is not protecting ourselves from the airborne particulates that might carry the COVID-19 virus. It is to protect others we encounter from the air particulates that we might be expressing when we sneeze or we cough or we breathe. In other words, wearing a mask protects you from me, and you wearing a mask protects me from you. I wear a mask so that if I have COVID-19 virus and I am asymptomatic, meaning I have no symptoms of this disease, but I carry the virus, I am a potential spreader. So wearing a mask means that you potentially are protected from the air particulates that I might breathe out. Now, you have the freedom not to wear a mask. But I want to be clear. If you do not, then you are lording your privilege of good health over other people's burdens of compromised health, your privilege of access to health care over those who may not have the same access to health care, and your access to single-family dwelling over and against those who may be forced to live in a multi-generational living situation. You see, by wearing a mask, I am saying to everyone, I welcome you into my space. And when I do not wear a mask, what I'm saying is I could care less about you and your health and your well-being. There is, my friends, no discussion about this. I'm reminded of the significance of masks every time I walk into a Giant store, into a Rudder store, into a Sheet store, into a Carnes store, because the people who are working in those stores are wearing masks because they are essential workers. They are on the front lines of keeping this economy moving the way that you and I hope that it will, right? So they wearing a mask protects you and me from them. How dare I walk into a store without a mask, basically saying thank you for caring about me, but I don't care about you and I'm not going to wear a mask. When I hear Jesus teaching today, I have to consider this, how simple of a gesture of giving a cup of cold water can I give to the most vulnerable and essential workers in my midst just by wearing a mask. Now, again, I hear many of you just tuning me out right now because of an argument like, well, I don't wear a seatbelt when I drive. I will not wear a seatbelt, and I'm not going to wear a mask, right? No one tells me that I have to wear a seatbelt. It's not a law. It's my choice, and it's my choice if I want to wear a mask or not. And I would say to your argument that you are partly right. Wearing a seatbelt is not a law, just like wearing a mask is not a law. But wearing a seatbelt is all about your safety. It has nothing to do with me. If you choose not to wear a seatbelt, then when you are in a car accident, you become a missile that is launched out of that vehicle, and wherever you land, God help you. Seatbelts protect me from harm. Wearing a seatbelt will protect you from harm. Wearing a mask, though, protects you from me, and your mask protects me from you. I understand masks are uncomfortable. They're hot. Believe me, I've tried to preach funerals with a mask on, and I will tell you, it is uncomfortable and it is hot. People are getting mask knee, right? These rashes on their lips and their cheeks and their chins, from wearing a mask, the rubbing, and how hot it is. But so goes the Christian life, right? We are to put others, and we are to subordinate our needs and concerns, subordinate them to the others around us. That is what being last, the first shall be last, the last shall be first, right? We're to think of others before we think of ourselves. Now, I also hear you saying that you'll say, but look, Pastor Dave, just because I don't wear a mask doesn't mean that I'm basically a good person and I love Jesus. And I hear you. I want to remind you, first of all, that Christianity is not about trying to basically be a pretty good person who loves Jesus. Being a Christian, good or bad, means that we take up our cross and follow Jesus. We just heard in the verses from chapter 10 of Matthew 38, 39, I said, Jesus says, whoever does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever loses his life because of me will find it. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. So here I am, back to my original question. Does wearing a mask really determine if you are welcoming or unwelcoming to others? My answer to this, of course, is it's all part of living in 21st century America today. I laugh to myself when I hear people say that they are in support of impeaching Governor Wolf and his, and decrying his administration for the handling of this pandemic. My question for those who are so critical is this: what insightful and brilliant plan did you have that would have been less harsh and less restrictive to Pennsylvanians, all the while still reducing the risk of the spread of COVID-19 as well as the governor's plan did? And if you have a plan, my email is revschreff@hotmail.com, and I would love to hear your plan and to read it. The whole reason for me of raising this issue in my Gander at the Gospel this week is that so many of my white Christian and non-Christian friends who are refusing to wear a mask because they say that, well, we just don't have the cases of COVID-19 in central Pennsylvania like other parts of the state and country, means that I don't have to wear a mask. But doesn't that mean that the governor's plan did exactly what it was supposed to do? So why are we going to stop doing the things that have brought us to this point? It's like saying I'm no longer going to take my medication for diabetes because my diabetes is controlled, so therefore I can stop taking my medication. The medication is the reason that your disease is under control. Wearing masks is the reason, and social distancing are the reasons that we have so few cases in our state. And yes, most of the deaths, if you look at the statistics, have been in nursing homes and elder care facilities and people on hospice and people in hospitals. And most of the deaths, if you take a look, have been among white people between the ages of 70 and 95. It's especially true in cities like Philadelphia, where the first cases reported were among mostly white people living in the city. But now the new cases tend to be among African Americans, our brown and brothers, our brown and black brothers and sisters, the poor, those who work in jobs that do not have a work at home component, which would include, I'm sorry to say, predominantly our African American, Hispanic, poor, and those who live on the margins of society. in this state. You know, COVID-19 does not discriminate among gender and race. It will be in every neighborhood, more so in the cities than in rural neighborhoods, more so among households that tend to include multi-generational occupants. You know, if you're under the age of 69, you are less likely, probably, to have the severe impacts of COVID-19, but you may, in fact, carry the virus, and you may, in fact, be asymptomatic. And if you carry the virus and you have no symptoms, you are a spreader. You can be a spreader of this virus to others through air particulates, which can be diminished by wearing a mask. I've been traveling around Dauphin, Cumberland, and York counties for the last 3 to 4 weeks as part of doing seatbelt surveys for the North Central Pennsylvania Highway Safety Administration. Perhaps it's the reason that I have seatbelt usage on my mind. Anyway, from my observations, and these are unofficial numbers, but I would say that from my observations, 84 to 89% of people driving on the roads throughout these 3 counties tend to wear their seatbelts. The numbers have been higher in previous years. I've been doing this for 12 years. The numbers have been lower in previous years. Interestingly enough, though, it appears that seatbelt usage goes down in more rural parts of Pennsylvania. I have seen that for, ever since I've been doing these seatbelt surveys. It also goes down with the age of the driver, meaning that the older you are, the more likely it is that you wear your seatbelt most of the time. And those numbers go down the denser the population, meaning I tend to see lower numbers of seatbelt usage in cities. I also have observed over the last 12 years that there is little usage anomaly amongst races, gender, and the type of vehicle you drive. Whether you are black or white, whether you are male or female, whether you drive a Toyota or a Tesla, you most likely wear your seatbelt most of the time. So why do I bring up this observation? Well, what I have observed over these last 3 or 4 weeks as I have traveled around Dauphin, Cumberland, and York counties is while there's really very little difference in seatbelt usage among races, genders, and vehicles, what I have observed is there is a great difference among mask usage among race and gender. Again, being in so many places, watching people in these 3 counties throughout the month of June, I have seen a significant drop in mask usage among the white, male, rural dwelling population throughout these counties, while our African American, Hispanic, and city dwellers continue to wear masks faithfully. Why? Well, I can't help but look at the statistics, read these, for the number of the cases around our country and around Pennsylvania, to see that the coronavirus overwhelmingly impacts the poor, those of racial minorities, those who have less access to health care, meaning that they may have underlying physical conditions, medical conditions that make them more vulnerable, and those who, of course, work in a job that do not offer social distancing and or work at home options. And that means then that the number of new cases we're going to see, it will decline among white Americans, while the number of new cases will increase among our black and brown brothers and sisters, and those who are forced to work in jobs that are of low pay but do not offer work at home opportunities. So I have to face this obvious conclusion. My status and stature as a middle-aged white man means I am most likely not going to be impacted by this virus, which means I will have a lower chance of getting the coronavirus. And yet, my Christianity demands that I wear a mask in solidarity with essential workers, the poor, and racial minorities. In other words, my wearing a mask signals that I welcome all people into my space, because I care about their humanity, I care about their health, I care about their well-being. It's just one small way I can offer a gesture of a cup of cold water of Christian love to all people, no matter their age, no matter their gender, no matter their race, no matter their health status, no matter their zip code. Will you welcome me in the name of Jesus Christ and to wear a mask? Until there's a vaccine, we should all be working together as Christians, called to carry the burdens of others, to put others first, right? So that's my gander at the gospel. I hope this is giving you something to really think about. Thank you for allowing me to unburden myself. And, remember, your faith is not what church you belong to, what theologian you follow. Your faith is a living, active, picking up your cross daily to follow Jesus, living that Christ-like life. Go out and be someone's thankful today. God bless you.